basically start off with what is science in your city. For those who've still not come across science in your city, we are basically India's first public billboard dedicated to science events. The idea of this initiative is very simple. It's that most science events happen in some of the premier institutions in the country, which if you're not part of the community, then you really don't get to know about them. So a group of science enthusiasts, we came together last year and we thought that we need to bring out this information about such events into the broader public domain so that these events are more accessible. uh, I know everybody is kind of, probably working towards their National Science Day and a lot of things are happening. But it's not necessary that everybody every time wants to hear a lecture in a large hall, right? What if, I told you that there's somebody who's making bricks using fungus. Like, would you like to see how it is done? That's not going to happen in a lecture hall. Or you want to, or if a famous professor is actually telling what is quantum entanglement, but over a beer in a nearby pub, like, you would want to be there. So science in your city brings together all these interesting events and different interests, not just a particular interest like biology or physics or chemistry. We're just trying to bring together all sorts of science events in one platform, and we kind of disseminate this through Instagram and WhatsApp. So you can follow us wherever you want to. We have a simple calendar as well. If you want, you can just get that and just know where these events are happening. Whether you are in Mumbai, Delhi, Pune, Kolkata, we just keep tab on events all over these cities, so that you don't have to. If you are a science event organizer yourself, you can get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to help you reach a larger audience. Another note that all science in your city members are volunteering their time and effort to make these events accessible. So if you would like to be a part of this effort, just reach out to any of the familiar faces that you have, in this meeting, or you can DM us on Instagram as well. So coming to booked for science series, the past few months we've worked on science in your city, and we've realized that there are a lot of events that are happening in different parts of the country. We have over 900 people following us on Instagram as well. But throughout this, we found that something was amiss. So we realized that books about science and conversations with authors were actually missing in all these events. So we decided to launch Booked for Science, a place where we can turn these pages into conversations. This isn't an or simple author lecture where they say like why did they write this book or why is this book significant and why you must read it. This is more of a place for honest conversation about the science in the book and the people behind it. So for our first conversation like this, we are honored to have Dr. Karishma Kaushik, whose first book, The Real Deal, a guide for aspiring girl scientists, was published last month.
Thank you so much, Amay, Kasturi, and the Science University team.
So I think most people know Karishma, but it is likely that you know her only for one facet of her very long and diverse career. So after completing her MBBS and MD in India, Karishma moved to the US to pursue a PhD at the University of Texas at Austin. Following her postdoctoral work, she was awarded the Ramalinga Swamy Re-Entry Fellowship to set up a research lab in India. While she was running her independent lab, she also began her science communication and outreach initiative, where she's encouraging conversations between students and scientists, and has later then she ventured into the area of science policy as well. This book, in Karishma's own words, is a mid-career memoir with real-life anecdotes and stories. So I'm sure that women in science will find a lot of commonalities between Karishma's career and their own. In the book, Karishma also tells us how she's tackled these situations, prioritized different aspects of her life, while also pursuing a career in science. So thank you for agreeing to be the first author on our series, Karishma.
Thank you
The
very much, Amay. As I said, much needed for science authors in India to get the spotlight. So thank you for Science University for taking up this mission.
Thank you. So the book was released recently, and most of the attendees may not have read it yet. But unlike other author conversations where interviewers tell you like, what the book is about and how to go about it, we thought of doing some a little different. So how this session will be different, for that, I'd like to invite Kasturi again, and she'll tell us what we are going to do. Just for those who don't know about Kasturi, Kasturi works as chief manager at the Atal Incubation Center in Hyderabad. She's done her PhD from IISc Bangalore, and after that, she did a postdoctoral work in Paris before joining the CPHMS in Hyderabad, where she works with organoids, organs on chips, a lot of computational biology, and just to help improve understanding between human health and disease. So, as a founding member of Science in Your City, Kasturi is actually keen to see more offline science related events happening in Hyderabad. So, once again, if you're organizing an event in Hyderabad or anywhere else, you know where to find us and whom you can contact. So, over to you, Kasturi.
Thank you, Ameya. So formal. And we haven't heard from Ameya. So Ameya is the man behind Coffee Table Science. And you will find him uh, talking at many science events as well. So let us move on. And today's format is a courtroom trial where we are going to have um, a trial called People versus the Real Deal. Karishma's book, of course, is The Real Deal. And we have staged the entire webinar in the form of a courtroom trial. So here is where Ameya and I will be in the form of prosecutors. Karishma is the defendant, of course, and the defense attorney. And you, our audience, are the jury. So you have to judge um, how she responds, or what is her thought process behind certain charges that we file against her. And also, you will have to give a decision at the end of our 30 minutes or so. So keep your thoughts in place and make sure that you respond to a poll that we will be running on your verdict. And so today we have Karishma, and we examine not a dangerous individual for crimes, but for suspicious levels of pragmatism. If any of you read the book, you will understand what I'm trying to say. It's extremely balanced and extremely reasonable. So this is what we are here to judge today. And we are, of course, going to hear Karishma's thoughts on it as well. Just a note, Karishma has generously agreed to give the book to a person who asks the most interesting question. She's going to be the judge of that. So please share your questions in the chat box. We will take them up at the end of our 30 minutes or so courtroom trial. All right. Over to you, Ameya, for the first charge, shall we say? Think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So the first charge, Karishma, is title-based exclusion in the first degree, right? The book you say is for girl scientists, right? Therefore, male scientists are not going to read it. I can even see the attendees who are there on this in this Zoom meeting, and most of them are women, right? So my charge is that you have titled the book in such a way where men are not going to read it, and if they're not going to read it, they're not going to know what is benevolent sexism or microaggression or implicit bias that women in STEM actually face. So men haven't shown up here. So I think that we need to reprint this book and say an aspiring, book for all scientists. What do you have to say?
I I accept that charge. Thank you, Amaya, for noting well right from the cover. So you absolutely immersed yourself in the book. We did toy with a few names in defense of the publishing team and editors I worked with. The lens was that of a woman scientist for women and girls in science. So we decided to put it on the cover. Not meant to be exclusionary. The preface and other parts of the book do say it's for all young people in science. It's for even scientists who are further along in their career. But I take this on me. I agree that it could exclude 50% of our population who should actually be reading the book. Uh, I hope the preface and the back page and others cover that. But when we thought of the book at a bookstore, we felt it should convey that it's through a prism of women in science.
A lot of women have also resonated with it, Karishma, very strongly so, right? How has been the response overall?
a lot of women have resonated with it through Kasturi. I actually been surprised at times, overwhelmed. The most surprising part of the messages I receive are, I actually thought while writing it, the reportage, the part two of the book, will be more interesting, more appealing, because I felt who would really be interested in my story in that sense. But the messages I've received from the community has been more about the memoir, which to me the takeaway is, what is an extraordinary life in science, what is extraordinary achievement in science, is very is unfortunately it's very external validation focused. Like, unless you're a Nobel laureate or a Padma Vibhushan or something of that league, that you cannot write a memoir. There's nothing in your story, and that sort of the responses have told me there is enough in a story which has resilience, grit, acceptance of failure, changes in career paths, uh, making career choices with your personal life placed at the center of it all. I was very surprised to see that resonate so well. So it's appealed to a lot of young women.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree, especially the memoir.
definitely. Okay, Karishma, over to charged tool now. So, what we feel is you've advocated for strategic indecision at the age of 15. You've talked about how students are pushed to pick a life defining subject even before they can legally drive a car or even vote. And instead, you suggest keeping all your doors open. So, people say that early specialization is actually about efficiency. But what do you think? How do you defend yourself?
It's a good point. So this was learning in hindsight. I said that the book has a lot of lessons in hindsight. Yes, hindsight vision is 100%. But I do feel that young people today have so many more career opportunities and paths than and the ability to craft their own path. And so keeping options open at 15 means that your personality will change, your skills will expand, your interests will change, your life situations will change. And keeping options open just allows you to fit yourself in multiple options, especially when constraints start coming in, such as geographic inflexibility and other priorities in life. So I came from a place of saying that options open early means more options later.
Yeah, it also reminds me of the fact that sometimes the adults want to be more secure in what kids are doing. And perhaps that could be the reason why we are forcing these options onto kids so that they can decide much earlier in life. But it's definitely not the most pragmatic thing to do.
Certainly not, especially now where people are curating and crafting their own careers and career paths. And there is much greater recognition that these very standard cookie cutter paths that we know of may not work for everyone, because people are aspiring bigger and greater than what those paths can offer. So it's not a bad idea to keep paths open. I think adults come from a place of concern that when you say you want to do everything, does that mean you'll end up doing nothing? That you have
Yeah,
too many options open. But as long as we show that you're working hard, you have some kind of an immediate plan in place, um, then I think that would be a useful message to convey to older people who are concerned.
for sure. Yes. All right. So coming to the next charge, which is destruction of career romance. So in the US, when um, someone asks you, why did you choose your specialty? They expect a very deeply personal origin story where, there's some childhood trauma, some tears, and you end up being inspired by something. But your answer basically was it was the best option available and it seems reasonable. So are you really destroying the romance of industry, of career telling?
I totally take that charge. I'm ready to accept that charge and ready for whatever the sentence is. Because so much of science careers, we feel forced to build narratives around our decisions. It was either trauma or a moment of inspiration, or suddenly I looked at this parasite under the microscope and I couldn't think beyond amoeba, or liver fluke just appealed to me at a personal level. And we just feel compelled to draw these. Now, for some people, it might be so. It might be genuine. But for a lot of us, it's just that we have to come up with something. rather than being blunt about it, that this is the option I had, this is what I got. It made sense for my personal life, it made sense for my other priorities, and say it as it is. Unfortunately, we feel compelled to come up with some backstory.
True
Yeah.
that.
Do you think, Karishma, that it is that, like, to have a very good career in science, you need to have a very inspirational story, saying that no, there has been a lot of struggle in the past, and this kind of came as a moment which was like a guiding light, and that's why I have taken this career in science. Is that a common theme that scientists usually do? Do they
It
follow?
is. It is. If you see that sometimes through their talks, or if you also watch movies based on scientists, it was always this, this very monumental episode or moment or interaction, and
Single
then
moment.
things opened up. A pivotal moment or something like that. But that's not how real life is. There will be maybe many pivotal moments. There may be none. It might be totally based on pragmatism, and so I think there are lots of stories to be told, and we don't have to stick to one narrative of it was this defining moment that changed it all. It's all very well for screenplay, but real life is not like that.
Real life is not screenplay.
I also feel when we fixate on one defining moment, yeah, scientists find it very hard to change paths. Because, oh, but I said I was inspired to become a professor at 22. How can I decide anything else now that I'm 42? Right.
Yes.
So that one moment may inspire you to do a PhD and maybe take up some professor role, but later on you might change your paths, and we should give ourselves enough leeway to maneuver out there.
Yeah.
And I think the book has spoken about limitations around which we build science careers. There are only that many jobs. Some jobs don't meet our expectations on location, on pay, on work-life balance, on all of that.
Speaking of maneuverability, especially for women in science, when you probably do your master's, probably even your PhD, and you get, most of the times you have to get married, and now your
Yes.
path is defined by what your husband is doing, right? And most people don't get that kind of support. So your next charge basically is that you are in possession of an exceptionally supportive spouse. I would extend this charge to a very supportive in-laws and your family as well. But for now, we will keep it to the spouse because most people are in that age group over here. So, in a world where women scientists are even struggling to find supportive PIs, you have managed to get a very supportive spouse. And again, the moment when you chose to get into a get engaged, get married, it was not like you had 40 years of experience or something, right? So you were very young. You also, taken a very your decisions that you've taken. So you mentioned it in the book as well, where how you met him and what sort of conversations you had. So do you think that there are some green flags that women in STEM should look out for when they are meeting their potential spouse, probably even for men, the few lucky men who have showed up over here, if they should be looking for something in women? But also, is there like a you know is there like a book for that as well? Is there a workshop that we can do where we look for the right signals coming over here?
A great question. I agree with that charge too. Yes. So, but when I wrote that chapter in the book, it was again hindsight. I had only discussed two things: my intention to do a PhD in the US and become a mother. And you correctly said, Ame, I was very young. I mean, what is 26, 27? Who knows what? And especially growing up in India, where you have very limited sort of open interactions with the opposite gender, and yeah, you really don't know what to expect out of a long term relationship or marriage. I had only two things: that one, this is my immediate plan, and two, I had heard that sometimes people don't want to become fathers, and I just wanted to confirm that he was not one of them, because I wanted to become a mother because that was going to be a problem. But later I found a study which I've quoted extensively in my book by Anita Kurup, when she surveys women scientists in India. And that study actually had data to back many of the anecdotes which I think happened to me, that 80 to 85% of women scientists in India are married. It's something we can see happening in our social cultural milieu, right? Women in our country usually feel pressure to marry or requirement to marry at a certain age. Most of them were married to men who also worked outside the house, and many of them were scientists. And then I started thinking about my own kind of equation with my partner and the kind of support I got from my PhD. I don't claim any foresight in making that choice. I actually had very little insight into the opposite gender at that stage in my life. It was a blessing, it was luck, fortune, whatever you want to call it. But I do think that study says that women scientists did acknowledge the need to talk about their career plans with their partner before getting married. Evaluate the kind of support you are seeing that person will provide you based on their interest in your career, education, um, and sort of assess whether you're going to be getting the kind of support. Now, that said, things can change and decisions are made on multiple factors and not just, wanting to do a PhD or wanting to seek a particular job. But this was a very important factor that helped women stay the course and not become, part of the leaky pipeline, the kind of support that they got from their partner. Yes,
Is
and I can't advocate for that enough when young girls are making their choices.
do you think that that is something that is kind of missing from the society as well, where we don't really speak about it, saying that there's a lot of focus on what your career options are going to be, but what sort of support are you looking for, from your family or even your spouse or extended family, like what is it that you're looking for? Do you think that families even have this kind of a conversation?
Much less, I would say, because a young girl who read my book wrote to me saying that after reading that part of my memoir and the study I referred to repeatedly, she said, I had a conversation with my parents saying that when you're looking for someone for me, would this be something you are looking at? How much my husband's family and husband would support my career? And the parents actually said, we never thought of that. But now that you have read this book, you could keep that in mind, look at it through that lens. So I think a lot more awareness about this needs to be there, because the study proved that spousal support, based on interviews of several hundred women scientists across the country, it's Anita Kuru is the author, that partner support was one of the most important factors in women being able to achieve their goals, professional goals at different stages.
Thanks for that, Karishma. Couldn't agree more. So another thing, we are moving on to the next charge. Another thing that you also talk about is a premeditated plan B, in the book.
Yeah.
And that is essentially our next charge. So what you say is the fact that, where are we? Okay. You're saying that you can be fully committed to a job while also quietly building a plan B. Isn't that like someone saying, I love you forever, but also keeping your suitcase fully packed?
Well, I like the analogy. I like, but jobs are not partners. Jobs, you should not be in love with your job. You are not married to your job, and a job is not a person that you can hurt or betray or anger or anything. A job is it's a contract. And I will say here again, I accept this charge, and I'm mid-career, and it was even till my most recent role that I had not built a sufficiently well-developed plan B. And I wrote the book post moving on from that role. And that's when I realized that this was a lesson that really got entrenched. That you can be fully committed to a role and yet have to build your own plan B, because, hey, jobs are not expected to last forever, and you are only as useful in an organization as you are. There is no emotional relationship here. I also talk about in the book about this whole plan B aspect when I talk about dream jobs. Once again, we are rare to think there is that one dream job, and once you land it, life is sorted and all your problems are washed away, and there's nothing more than that. And that's not dream job itself is a very artificial construct. Such a thing doesn't exist. And even if you find a job that fulfills a lot of the criteria you had, you will outgrow that job. And I very honestly talk about how I outgrew what I considered my dream job in the book. So there is no disconnect or dissonance between being committed to the job and having a plan B. You can be fully committed to what you're being paid to do, but yet you can think, what if this organization doesn't get funding? And I speak to all the young women here, what if my skill sets are no longer needed? What if they choose to downsize? What if they choose to relocate the organization? And these are all real life things that have happened. And the case studies were actually an intention to bring forth these situations, right? And then you don't want to be caught off guard. You don't want to be caught on the wrong foot. And I will accept that it was still my most recent job that I was caught thinking, oh my God, I thought this was going to last for 5 years. What happened? And then, of course, I worked, and I say very honestly, with my husband. I spoke extensively about it with him, with my mother, with my sister, with a career coach. It took me so much of work to be able to think beyond that role, and that I have a whole career ahead of that as well.
Yeah.
So I would really encourage people to think of plan Bs quietly. You don't have to say this in a job interview. You don't have to say this in your organization, but you have to have your own plan, because you still need bills to be paid. You still need to advance your career. And even if we look at a job as dream job, and I love this job, jobs can't love you back. Organizations can't love you back.
Yeah. Completely agree. Uh, I wanted to take a slight detour from that, and because we're talking about jobs, Karishma, I wanted to ask you. Oftentimes, we've heard that the best positions aren't really advertised. You have to make a network. You have your profile needs to connect with someone, and they may actually make a place for you in that organization. What are your thoughts on this?
This is true. This happens not just for academic jobs, even non-academic jobs. Um, I don't know where I stand on it, because at times I do feel it's sort of a nepotism. If someone creates an opportunity for you just because you know them, and it's
Yeah,
something that
true.
clearly disadvantages women, it also disadvantages people from other marginalized groups. So there I also talk about intersectionality of privilege and bias in STEM, where women from underrepresented groups, rural areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities don't have that kind of access. Uh, I don't see what we can do about it. It is the way some systems are built. Men do have advantages of these networks more than women, and then there's certain women who have advantages more than other women too.
Right.
Other than just putting yourself out there in a way that you feel comfortable with. For example, digital networking is tremendous tool for women to use, especially if they can't be at beer with the boys and boys clubs and boys night out. And women have household responsibilities, childcare responsibilities. There are also social aspects that may preclude women from being seen in these places. So digital networking helps, and connecting with people, saying, hey, if you have good work for me, think of me. Hey, I'm looking for this in my career. That's not nepotism. That's proactive networking. And that should be done uh, as much as one is comfortable with doing. I would encourage doing it, absolutely.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I see that the conversation has taken like a very serious turn. So I'd like to kind of bring it back to a little cheerful mood and ask you that the charges, do we actually perpetuate this culture of excessive seriousness, right? In labs, in scientific spaces. We start off, it starts off in the lab, and now it's come to a 1 hour Zoom conversation as well, where everything becomes more about why we need to do this. So, why, in your opinion, why would you say that that science is so dreary? Why are labs so dreary? Why are why do we perpetuate this? In this men, women, everybody's alike. But why do we perpetuate this? And why? What can we do to make labs a little more cheerful, little more places that we'd want to go to? Why is because I've left the lab after
Hmm.
how dreary it is. So I want to know what can we do to make it a little better.
See, I think in the reportage where I talk of work-life balance and self-care, one thing we should accept, that scientists are a serious bunch of people. Science pursuants are a serious bunch of people. And I also didn't want to trivialize the book beyond what I was comfortable with doing, because I knew my readers would be young women wanting to do science and medicine. And I know what their um, capacity to absorb information would have been, and how serious they are about their work, how committed they are. So that's a fact, right? That we are very serious about our work. But also, I'll say that we have a lot of science is also a high pressure career in its own way. There is the competition is pretty stiff. Positions are few, jobs are few, awards are even fewer. And these awards, accomplishments, milestones, they disproportionately affect a scientist's career, in my opinion, than in other professions. Like, and one of the things I realized being married to someone who's from the tech industry is they don't talk about work when not at work. We scientists tend to talk about work all the time. They don't describe people as, oh, this one, that is an SS Bhatnagar awardee. Oh, that one, they got the IYBA Hargobind Khurana award. So these awards are not even relevant in their conversations. We describe people with these awards, and the outside world is like, what is Bhatnagar award? And you don't know Bhatnagar award? That is everything. Because then, and it really reiterated to me how much in our silos we are, that we describe people with awards and grants. So he's an intermediate fellow, he's a senior fellow. That's how immersed we are in what we are doing. Okay, that said and done. Um, I don't know about lightening the atmosphere in the lab, but I think there's a lot of room to put things in perspective. A perspective of science is finally just a career, just like other careers are. And it's a job is just a job, like other jobs are. We tend to make it a lot more than that. It bleeds into our mental space, our life, our choices. And then it starts affecting self-care, work-life balance, even worse, mental health. So I've called that out in the book quite openly.
Yes, you have. That's my next charge as well. That you've been very candid about your own condition. You've been candid about your emotions. You've not, like I've not seen books where people are so open about saying that yes, you broke down and you couldn't think about it and it was so sudden. And maybe later on you look at it and say that maybe the situation was not that bad, right? Any author would be like, okay, this is a very serious situation where I can say, yes, I cried, I broke down, and this took a toll on my mental health. But sometimes the situation is not that bad, but I still cried, right? And you've not tried
Yes.
to hide it. You've not tried to hide it at all. It's not like we've read a draft or something, we've read the fully published book, and still you don't shy away from saying, I took 2 days to recover from this minor shock, right? So you've been very honest about it. Is that something that you were conscious of doing from the beginning, or it happened and then the editors were like, yeah, yeah, probably we should just let it be? How did that happen?
I wanted this to be a book where I would disclose as much as I felt comfortable with disclosing. And when opportunities didn't go my way, I was completely comfortable with disclosing that. Maybe it's a byproduct of being mid career. Maybe there is an assured confidence that comes with saying, I've navigated many career paths and, I'll figure it out from here on. But it was also because I wanted to put forth to people along the path of becoming scientists or building careers in science that sometimes factors are beyond your control. And while you are tremendously devastated and dejected at that point, one is you have to recognize that this was beyond my control. It was not a reflection of my capability, commitment, performance, right? It was, to put it honestly, the system. The system hasn't updated itself, right? To make sure that age cutoffs no longer exist, to make sure that people with non-linear paths can still be retained, to make sure that jobs don't just get cancelled because they didn't get enough applications. I've talked about that as well. So, firstly, I wanted people to recognize that the factors are beyond their control. And I also wanted people to know that you will get through it. I mean, yes, some shocks you cry for 3 days, some shocks you cry for 3 hours, some shocks you don't cry at all. Some shocks you remember for the rest of your life. They leave an imprint, on your psyche, but you will still recover. You will still move on. You will still do big things. You will still achieve your dreams. They'll be tweaked, they'll be changed, but good things will still happen. And what was very interesting, I know lots of people have asked me about the difficult parts of the book that I wrote. I actually wrote it very honestly, saying I want to put it all out there. My editor didn't do any cutting and chopping, actually, not too much. But when I actually look at the book, and now I will open a difficult chapter and in my life. And what you will see, I'm not going to do any reading, please don't be worried, Ameya and Kasturi. But what you will see, that a difficult chapter in your life finally comes down to this. It just comes down to like 8 pages, right? 8 sides. But when you're living it, it seems like it's forever, and it seems like the worst thing it happened to you, and it seems like it's never going to end, and your career is over, and all those thoughts were coming in my head. And I've written about that very difficult chapter as well. And it finally came down to 8 pages, unedited. And when I looked at that one morning after the book was published, and I said, those that was a difficult chapter. It's all of 8 pages, but there are like some 115 pages before and 115 pages after, and that's all still me. That sliver was just a chapter in my life, pun intended. It was just a experience in my life, and it didn't define who I was. It didn't define everything I did before and everything I aspire to do after. So it gives a lot of perspective to look at it as just another lesson. And that's why I wanted to put it all out there, very unfiltered. And it's all true. So I had nothing to hide because I wasn't making anything up. It's all true.
Thank you, Karishma. That was an excellent response. I mean, I love the way you described it, that it only fit 8 chapters, but it felt never ending, right? Like 8 pages,
At that time.
sorry. Yeah.
Exactly. At that time, it felt never ending. At that time, it felt, will I ever see the other side of this? Will I ever recover from it? But it was only 8 pages finally. And what you're
Yeah.
left with as time moves on, the hindsight leaves you with a lot of lessons and learnings. But the emotional aspects of a poor work experience gets blunted over time.
Okay. So with this, we are going to ask the jury to respond. We have over 20 participants in our audiences. And so I'm going to share a link in our chat box, and let's see what they say to our questions. So everyone, you will find a link in our chat box, and you can click on that, and you can respond as you find a very cute defendant. I'm going to share my screen to see how they respond.
Okay, I'm nervous now. This is a live trial.
Yes, this is. Let's wait to see how they respond. Everyone, do start filling in your responses. Are you finding the defendant guilty of being too reasonable? Not guilty, just realistic? Or is she sentenced to write a memoir sequel?
More work.
I think we'll wait for a few minutes as they send in the responses. I hope you are filling in the responses.
So the delay probably, Kasturi, is we have to log in to
Yeah,
our.
no, I think you can just click on view the results, and then
Okay, okay.
it should just let you. Oh no, oh no, you have to log in. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, it's everybody's doing work today.
this seems like a very cumbersome way, but I hope it's been a fun conversation. We wanted to do something different.
I think we can just take in some audience questions while everybody just does this. So
Yeah.
it's like
One thing.
everybody's reserved judgment. The judgment will come out later.
Yeah, perhaps we could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kasturi, one thing,
Yeah.
if you could just give us the Mentimeter code to the poll, then we might not have to log in to fill the details. Could you
Got
just
it.
check with that once?
I'll just check that once. Yeah. I mean, maybe we could start with the audience questions though.
Yep.
Sounds good.
So I'll just quickly run through the chat.
Yeah, there's some really good questions.
Yeah.
It really makes me feel good, Kasturi Amey, that people have read the book. They're remembering lines from the book. So grateful. So we can take any question, Amey.
Okay.
There are lots of good ones. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can just go sequentially. I think Nishta, you can probably start. You can unmute yourself and get started. Nishta?
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. As always, Karishma, it is very inspiring to hear you once again. So I was just wondering, this thing that we talk about, life happens even if our academic milestones are delayed or not reached. So how does one gather the necessary support? And it starts from home, really, because it's difficult to convince your parents, even if you're ready with your set of questions for a, let's say, a prospective spouse or whatever. You are expected to behave a certain way for those things to happen. So what can young women do in those kind of situations? And how does one gather support? And even if there are some people who tend to get married, even while they're doing the PhDs or something like that, but then when they move on to become parents, they find even lesser support, especially at the institutional level. So these are my two questions, if you could throw some light on that.
I mean, and this is a valid point. Some oftentimes parents may not fully understand what it takes to be in a science career. If your parents are scientists, doctors, it's much easier there. But they may not fully understand the time, the investment of years that it may take. I could say very naively that a conversation might help explaining to them why you think dealing, anyone thinks dealing marriage or making sure the person will support your future endeavors. Uh, at the same time, if you want to get married, one could be open to it and just evaluate options and see where that goes without any pressure to commit. Maybe a conversation would help. The second thing I would say is financial independence. So even if parents don't get fully convinced, I mean, if you're making your own money, living your own life, there is only that much that you would have to be influenced. I would say that's the second thing. And when it comes to having children, I think there it's tricky because now you're married and you've decided to have children. But I do feel from my experience working with women in academia and outside of academia, very clearly articulating the kind of support you'd expect from your spouse. And it's shocking, sometimes surprising, how many of women who are PhDs and would still conform to certain social constructs that I have to leave because the nanny has to leave, and not be vocal enough about getting your spouse on the table for that kind of support, or very clearly saying mine is the second rung career, and his is the first priority. And I have so many examples of that. The other aspect is building your own support system beyond your spouse too, because finally you need to get to work. There is only that much an organization, anyone, and you mean I mean anyone, can also extend themselves, right? After a certain point, an organization will say, hey, but you're being paid to do a job, so please show up. And there, nanny, so childcare support that is reliable and redundant. So a preschool or daycare or nanny at home, parents-in-law as much as possible. But the whole idea is you should not have to question every day, can I get to work at 9 a.m.? There should be some structure in place to know that, yeah, on most days, except emergencies and really outlier situations, I will be able to get to work. And I did a PhD with a child at home, and that was the system that allowed me to do a PhD with a child at home. Because I knew that, yeah, 9 out of 10 days, I will be able to show up. So these are just from my experiences of working and talking to other women.
That's why I say that you need to take a 2-day workshop, a very intense workshop on all these aspects where people can be, oh, this is what I'm not doing right. So, Pranika, I think you can go in with your next question.
I have also learned many of these things the hard way, Ame. But yeah, I mean, happy to share whatever gyan I have. I think the next question is
Okay,
Pranita.
Pranika?
Yeah.
Hi, Karishma ma'am.
Hello, Pranita.
So actually, I have almost completed 3/4 of the book, and I'm like, okay, it gives a feeling that okay, I'm not the only one person who is facing these challenges, and it's like you can figure out the solutions. These challenges are fine. So it's really gave me a hope, like a ray of hope that okay, this is fine. So my question is,
Thank you.
yeah, and the as I have written in the chat, like that sentence that there is no right way of building your career is just your own way to do it. That's
Yes.
the I mean that's the really great one I found. So my question is, do you really feel that you some point of time at your career, if you feel stuck, you're not able to take a decision whether to you have to change your career path or you have to like getting married, then you have to choose a flexible path which will help you in your personal life also. So if you're stuck at that point, it's fine and you can find your way. So what will you say about that situation? That
Yes,
how
yes,
to say.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, as hard as the situation seems, it is still temporary. And I can give you the example of when I took 2 years to enter the workforce again after moving to the US. It was exactly what you described, Pranita. There didn't seem to be end in sight. It just seemed one long tunnel with no light at the end of it. My visa didn't allow me to work. I was not getting a PhD in California where my husband
Yeah.
and I lived at that time. And my visa didn't allow me to work. My H4 visa didn't allow me to work. We didn't have a green card. I mean, it was all in all a very tough situation. My medical degrees were not recognized. I truly didn't see. Look, I think when you're at such a place in your life, and thankfully it doesn't happen too many times, so there are two ways. One is you keep trying towards what you want to get. Like for me, it was a PhD. You keep trying. We tried 2 years and finally it happened, but it happened at the cost of moving to another state. It still didn't
Yes.
happen exactly how we wanted it. All right. But there's also a point where you say, I've tried enough and the system is not yielding. I don't see any change. I don't see things being different. And then you either do make a radical change, like you change a career path or you change your location, like I did, or you just decide to do something else. And honestly, people have asked me if a PhD hadn't worked out in the US, what would you do? And maybe a master's in public health or something like that I would have pursued. It's important at that time to not think it is you. Some factors, like I said again, they are beyond your control. And if you have tried multiple times and it's still not happening, I mean, at some point you have to say, look, I need to think about myself and figure out another way to go about this. So
Yes.
definitely such times will come in one's life. And there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. You may need to just change your goals along the way.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for your kind words for the book, Pranita. We can always connect on email.
Yes. Sure, ma'am.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Ashna Fatima, you can ask your next question.
Hi everyone. Okay, so Ayman, thank you for your talk. So my question is basically very simple and broad actually. So someone being in science and someone who has an Indian upbringing, there is always this feel that you are not doing enough. You have to do more. Get good mark in 10th, or life is ruined. Do well in 12th, or life is ruined. So there is always this that there is more to do. You have to do better. And I mean, the Indian upbringing, there is this, thing hammered into your head that being a woman, you play a major role in the stability of your family. So there will be situations where really want to prioritize your career or want to prioritize your family, and you get this guilt that you're not giving your 100% anywhere. So have you ever faced that guilt, or how did you deal with it, and how do you, advise other young women in science to handle both? How do you balance it?
Um, it's very, very relatable. What I have, of my, uh, it changes with different stages in life. Definitely, when my child was young and I was pursuing a PhD, I did feel I'm spending so much time out of the house. Will this PhD happen? But I also knew that after getting into the program, quitting it would be foolhardy. I've said that in the book because once you're in, somehow you will see the other end. And I was enjoying my work. So while there was some guilt, I also felt I was enjoying the work. It was, I was enriching my intellect. And so I wanted to do that. And I gave that 8, 9 hours of the day. So maybe the answer lies in, are you happy? You know, you may feel guilty about it, but are you still, does it still give you joy? Does it still give you joy? So at that point, I continued. I chose to stick with the PhD while I had a child. But many years later in my career, when the question of getting a permanent position in Pune came up, and people were saying, oh, Ashoka, universities all over the country are hiring. Sonipat there are universities. Berhampur is hiring. Bhubaneswar is hiring. I didn't feel at that time I wanted to take the decision to relocate my family or live away from my family. This was a very personal choice. There may be women who say, I would do it all for an academic job, for a permanent academic job. We had made a decision not to leave Pune. I didn't want to leave without my family. I chose to change career paths. There was some, I won't call it regret. There was some, I reminisced about what it could have been had a permanent job worked out for me, but it didn't. And so I moved on. I didn't feel happy about taking a job that would mean relocating my family or being away from them. So the answer is, how do you feel about it? Does it give you that much joy that you're ready to deal with that guilt? Or do you think there are other ways to do it?
Thank you.
Okay,
I
Shri-
hope that helps. It's a very personal
Yeah,
situation.
so
Yeah.
it's like you just have to choose. Guilt is there, but if happiness weighs in more, then that's the way
I,
path to take.
yeah, I
Thank
would say
you.
so. Yes.
yeah, I think Shrishta, you can go ahead with the next one.
I think she's facing some audio challenge. Maybe you want to read it?
Okay, so Shrishta's question is basically that what was that one section or part in the book which was there in the manuscript but got chopped off by the editor, which you felt really sad about?
Also, actually, none. The honest answer is none. There was a part the editor chopped, but I re-added it. And that part was about my hunt for a permanent position in Pune. I think the editor chopped it because they kind of felt, what is the big deal in not getting a job? But the gravitas of what it takes to get a permanent position in India, in a city of your choice, the intractable bureaucracy around our recruitment, where for 1 year you hear nothing and you're just waiting. And then there is one notice on the website that says, Rad ho gaya, application cancel ho gaya, or whatever that is. That didn't come across to the editor because they may not have been from the same background, science background, you know. So she chopped that, saying, "Oh, but it's just one job that didn't work." I said, no, it was not one job. It was my only chance at a permanent position. It has a lot more meaning, and the scientific community will get that. I was absolutely convinced that they would get that. And so I added that back in the book, actually. But there was nothing else that was taken out, really, honestly. Nothing.
It's the ecosystem we live in, right, Karishma? Beyond 35, who will hire you, right? And that's a very peculiar system.
System, which other professions may not do not have. In fact, their experience counts. To say that I've been in the workforce for 15 years has a lot of value when you're negotiating a pay scale, for example. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Sarah, you had a question as well.
I have a lot of questions, and I think Karishma, we need a separate chat.
Sure,
But
sure.
I cannot claim to quote from your book because I'm still reading it, and it is very enjoyable. And my question, actually, in the chat, you have sort of covered. So I'll probably ask you a different question, which is, what shifted inside you when you finished the book? You know, as a woman, as even like a citizen of this country, looking at science, or as you know, just the place of women in science. I mean, we're celebrating C.V. Raman's discovery tomorrow as National Science Day, but how far have we come? I mean, C.V. Raman didn't really allow women scientists or women to enter science, and so how long have we come since then? And you're writing about those same issues, and a lot of those issues still persist in some shape or form, probably not as
Yes.
bad as, you know, women not being allowed or being considered a burden or a distraction in the scientific system. I mean, we've definitely moved far ahead. So yeah, so what shifted in inside you after you finished or you completed the book? What did you see differently?
It is a whole process. Thank you, Sarah. I mean, you know, from the time I started writing the book, the whole process was very cathartic. So personally, I'll talk about it personally, and then for what shifted in me for other women in science. It helped me put things in perspective. I could see there were lots of great moments in my career as there were doors and that closed on me and people that disappointed me, and it all became part of like a fabric. The bad did not stand out any more than the good. You know, we tend to focus on things that were not working for us, or there where we felt slighted or unfairly treated, but it all sort of became a montage, like a collage, and everything had its place. That was my personal learning while writing the book, my personal revelation. But when I finished it and I put it out into the world, I did not at any point want it to be pessimistic. So the simple question is, should girls become scientists or should girls not become scientists? I can't answer that in a yes or no. I felt that the book eventually made me feel like I had put it out there as I wanted to be inspirational as well as informative. I want people to know the challenges also that are going to come. I hope I've been given a glimpse 20 years in advance for someone doing a PhD today, what those challenges might be. I also did not want it to be irrationally inspirational, like we can do it, women can do it, we've got it sorted. And I didn't want that to come either. So it didn't have to be pessimistic, but not irrationally optimistic either. It had to be real and informative. I felt later this shift happened in me too. If I had to advise anybody about a career in science, be informed, be in charge.
Yeah, and thank you for mainstreaming these conversations by publishing like a, commercial popular science book, because, for women in science conversations to actually be published by someone like Penguin. I think
Yes.
it's a great
Thank you. Thank you.
press.
And it's gone into reprint. Karishma, can you believe this?
Sort of like, yes, I could not believe it, Kasturi, but sort of the issue is that people started emailing me, where is my book? Where is my book? So, but yes, it's great. It's great. Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe a last question from Kavya.
Yes, thank you so much for the time shared. I did pick up on one thing that I would love to know your thoughts on, which is I think you briefly touched on getting counsel or advice from someone about career, and there are consultants in this world that do that. But I'm also wondering from you if there has been an influence from someone like a mentor or someone that is naturally part of the ecosystem that can also play that role for us if we do develop a sense of trust. So, like, how does someone find the right counsel at the right time when they are sort of planning a career move or something that feels very dramatic, but you want like an outside opinion from someone that cares about you and cares about your career? So, just wanted some thoughts on that as well.
Certainly. So, like all of you have pointed out, Kavya, a lot of my life, my mother and my husband have been my support system. All right. And that's great. That's great. But at some point, I was talking too much about it with them. And I kind of felt that, like a partner and a parent, they are not a therapist at the end of the day. Like you can't always be talking about your work problems. And I tended to have a lot of issues with certain aspects of my career. And the concern about, what next and all of that. Then the career coach came in. She's a licensed therapist. She took on the role of guiding me through some very challenging times in my career and gave me perspectives that I may not have found for myself. Not everyone can afford a paid career coach. This was a really great investment. I stopped talking about it at home. I started thinking about it clearly, not over dramatizing it. What next? What after this? All of those questions. She helped me put it in perspective, look at the goods, look at the positives, look at the learnings. A mentor within the community is good too. My only concern there sometimes is the confidentiality of what you share, because we are a very close knit biology community in India. And I'm not sure if, even if well intentioned people might share something, even if well intentioned. So I was a little concerned about that. And so I found a career coach as someone little outside of the community, very, very helpful. And I can't recommend it enough if you have the resources and are at a difficult career stage. Else, definitely a confidant and mentor is something that will be very valuable.
Thank you. That makes sense. I think the idea also that not just the confidentiality, but also the biases that sort of happen when we are just talking to members of the same community. Maybe there's less of that. So,
Exactly. True. So that's a great point. I would just add, based on what you said, that the confidant or mentor should be a little one removed from the immediate community.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we can bring the session to a close. Before we do that, I think we should have a round of applause for that one member who managed to sign into Mentimeter and actually put a vote over there. I don't know who that is, but great work over there.
Lovely.
But
And I can see, Amay, that I've been sentenced to write a sequel.
yes, so we need to do that as well, and also we need to schedule another book for science session for that. So we'll do it before the book is released, because that'll be like exclusive for us. But yeah, So I think Karishma, you've also promised a book to one of
Yes.
the people who answered the questions. So asked a great question. So who would that lucky person be?
Oh my God, this is uh, very hard, but it would be of all the questions that I think the people that those who typed in the chat window, it would actually be a question we did not take. Um, Let me just find it. Actually, 1 minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. I'm so sorry about this. It would be Neha Kumari.
Okay.
Neha Kumari, who asked, what moment or event happened which made you think you needed to tell a story? And that was a very pivotal moment in the book and in my career. So thank you, Neha, for that question. We didn't take it, but the book has the answer actually. So now you're going to get the book and you can read the answer.
Yeah. It speaks more about my abilities to pick questions from the chat. So
There are lots of good questions. There were lots of good questions. And maybe, Neha, you can just email me your address and I will ship the book to you.
okay, great.
Perfect. Ameya, did we inform Karishma of the jury verdict?
I no, that's right. I think you shared it here.
Yes, I did share it. So it seems it was 50-50. 50% said they'd like her to write another book, and 50% said she's not guilty at all. She's just being too reasonable. I think that speaks volumes of Karishma's commitment and the work she has put into all of this. How do you find the verdict, Karishma?
I'm ready to go with it. I'm ready to go with it totally. Thank you for saying that it sounded reasonable. About the sequel, I mean, I need more experiences now. I've sort of run out of them. They're all in the book. So give me some time. And now I'm sort of, I even look at experiences like I need good ones and I need not so good ones too. Because even the not so good ones end up in the book and they actually have a lot of impact. So I'm more embracing of what's to come in my career. So yeah, sequel is on the cards. I just can't say when.
It's a great way to end our webinar. Yeah, you were saying thing.
Yeah, I said it will come. It's just that when do we do that? When do we have this conversation is just that it's to be decided, but the book will come and this conversation will come as well.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, Karishma, for your time and for this wonderful interaction.
Thank you very much, Kasturi, Amey, Sara, and team Science in Your City. Best of luck for Book for Science and for your initiative. Happy to support it in any way. Heartfelt thanks for hosting this for me.
All right. Thank you, Karishma. And thank you all the audiences for the engaging questions and the interactions. We'll come up with a better format next time for sure. All right. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.